It's crunch time.
Hello and welcome to Crunch Time, a panel discussion about your favorite topic, sports. I'm your host tonight, Alexis Pearson. Alongside me are the three panelists for tonight. We've got Blake Tyson, Chris Pearson, and Nick Spaliopoulos. Now guys, are you ready for some sports debate tonight?
Oh yeah, it's good to be back.
Sounds like they're ready to go. We've got a lot of topics to cover tonight, so let's get right into the first one, which is going to be Minnesota Vikings kickers. Now, as you guys know, Daniel Carlson was let go the other day, and they brought in Dan Bailey, who was a former Dallas Cowboy. And Carlson went 0 for 3 on the day against the Packers. He was a huge topic of discussion. Dan Bailey is the second most accurate kicker in NFL history. Did Zimmer make a good decision in bringing in Bailey? Is he going to help the Vikings? And did Zimmer kind of do Carlson dirty by letting him go? He was only a rookie.
Personally, I don't think he did him dirty at all. I mean, you're in a Super Bowl season. You have probably 2 or 3 year window. Don't rely on a rookie kicker. Go with the veteran. He's the second most accurate kicker in NFL history. He's converted 88% of his field goals over his career, and he was perfect from PATs up until last year, which is the year that he was hurt and his numbers were down a little bit. So I don't have a problem with that at all. I think it was the smart decision. I think it was the right decision. And I think he's got a good leg. He's hit from 56 plus. My only concern is he's 4 of 6 from in the playoffs.
All right. Thank you, Blake. Chris?
I think that, this was a great decision because, he's 30 years old. 29.5 is the average age of all starters coming into the season this year. He's not that old for a kicker. You look at a lot of kickers like Adam Vinatieri, still one of the best in the league. Sebastian Janikowski, not as good this year, but still well into his 30s, was kicking long kicks. This isn't that old for a kicker. And like you said, he's extremely accurate. But after missing 3 field goals in the first game, Dan Carlson had to go. It just wasn't his time.
All right, Nick?
Well, that's exactly it. Zimmer didn't do anything dirty against Daniel Carlson. It's at the end of the day, it's a business decision that needed to be made. And Zimmer said when he was hired in Minnesota as the head coach that he wanted to fix the kicking situation. 4 years later, he's finally doing it. And like Chris kind of talked about, he's not that old for a kicker. And at the same time, the time that he has taken off away from the game hasn't really hurt him because he's a kicker. It's not like he hasn't been training like a running back or a wide receiver would. And, going back to his percentage, he's not 88.2%, that's as a whole, but he's 91.7% when it's indoors. He's going to play 8 games indoors, 7 of them at home, 1 at Detroit. And I will mention Super Bowl 53, Atlanta, inside.
I like what Chris said, too, about the age. I mean, when the Vikings signed Ryan Longwell, he was only 32 years old, and he was here for, 6 years? Mm-hmm. I mean, this is your chance to solidify the kicker position for the next, 8 years? He's 30 years old. I mean, possibly longer. Yeah.
All right. That was awesome, guys. I'm going to have to give this one to Nick. I really like what he said about it being a business decision because ultimately that is what it comes down to in sports is what you got to do best for your team. So the next one that we're going to talk about is the whole roughing the passer penalty. And now this has been a huge topic the first couple weeks of the NFL here. We've seen a play like that on the Browns game, the one that's playing right now. We saw 2 of them in the Vikings and Packers game, the Clay Matthews hit on Kirk Cousins and the Kendricks hit on Aaron Rodgers. There were some game-changing plays, especially the Matthews hit on Cousins as that was an interception pass that he threw late in the game. So what does the NFL need to do to fix this, and what are your thoughts on the current rules?
They need to go back to what they did before because it clearly is not working with all the new penalties and how it's been affecting games already in the first 2 weeks. They are encroaching a line where you can't even match physics. People are physically going through other people because of the momentum and everything. Then you're going to throw a penalty on that? I don't think so. I mean, I know safety, I get that, but you had a rule before that. Let's go back to the one that was working.
Yeah. The NFL expects defensive linemen and linebackers to defy a law of science. It just doesn't make sense. And this new rule adds to the things that NFL fans don't like the rule of what is a catch. Last year we didn't know what a catch is. This year we don't know what a roughing the passer is. There is one thing that I didn't mind about that Vikings-Packers game is they were consistent. Both of them were not the right call, in my opinion. The Packers clearly got the bad end of that deal, because it happened later in the game and it was a crucial, like Alexis touched on, It's a big thing. As long as they stay consistent, I guess I'm okay with it, but I would rather have a rule change.
Perfect. Okay, Blake?
Right. I agree with Nick. Consistency is the key. I mean, I don't agree with it, but I mean, you saw the hit by Kendricks on Rodgers, and even Rodgers was interviewed, I think it was yesterday, and they asked him, they said, you know, what are your thoughts on this? And he's like, well, it's not a penalty. Like, even Aaron Rodgers, who basically his injury is what caused this rule to get put in place, thinks that they're doing too much. And I agree, it's too much. But by what the book says, it is a penalty, and as long as they're consistent with it, I'm fine with it, even though I don't agree with it.
And I mean, that's what I was going to say, because Nick goes, I don't think it's not a penalty. Well, by the books, it is a penalty, like you said. And that's just, so one of the things the NFL needs to know is that's what, a roughing the passer is, even though they need to shorten up the rules a little bit. Right. Like you guys said, it's hard for these players to, slow down their momentum and things like that. But eventually, they're going to have to figure it out one way or another. And I don't think know, they can. I mean, I know it's going to be difficult, but something is going to have to change, how they're attacking the quarterbacks, how they're hitting the quarterbacks. I don't know what that answer is, and I'm sure most of them don't either.
Perfect, guys. I'm going to give this one to Chris. He was the first one to mention it. The whole thing about physics, when it comes down to it, you're asking guys to do things that they can't physically do, and that really affects the game a lot. So that one goes to Chris. We're going to move on to the next topic, which is Josh Gordon. He was a wide receiver. He was traded to the Patriots for a 2019 fifth-round draft pick. Now, the Browns are a disaster. They have been a disaster for a while. What impact will Josh Gordon have on the Pats, and did the Browns make a good decision? What do they have to lose at this point?
Starting off, the Browns hands down lost that trade. They gave up one late-round draft pick for a solid wide receiver, and for the Patriots, they don't have great receivers. Your 1 and 2 receivers are Chris Hogan and Philip Dorsett. They're not a name in the league. They're not a household name that will get you 100 yards receiving and a touchdown every week, and Josh Gordon can bring that to the Patriots, not to mention who's throwing the ball at him. It's a lot different having Tyrod Taylor throw you ball than it is Tom Brady.
I personally am not that big on Josh Gordon. There's been all this hype about him. He hasn't done anything since 2013. I mean, this is 5 years ago.
He caught one pass in week 1 for a touchdown.
Yeah.
But he hasn't seen the field.
Okay. Cordero Patterson caught a touchdown pass, and he was only, but he had drops. That doesn't make him a good receiver. Since in his last 11 games, Josh Gordon has 43 catches for 655 yards and 2 touchdowns. Not bad, but he's only catching 46% of his targets. When before that, in 2013, his big year, he caught 58% of his targets.
Who's throwing
Chris
him the
is
ball?
gonna have a chance to talk here, let Chris do his bit.
I'm going to say I'm with Blake here. I mean, Josh Gordon is a disaster. I mean, he hasn't really done anything for 6 years. Like, this was so smart of the Browns to get rid of a problem in your bench. You need to start building a team that's going to help you win games. And a guy like that, such a problem person who has injuries, who isn't around, has vices outside of the game, he's not going to help your team be better.
But you can't tell me that. You can't tell me that looking at his first 2 years in the NFL that he was not a good wide receiver.
To me, it's not necessarily as much about the talent
Look at
as
who's
it is
throwing
as
him
it is
the
the
ball.
locker room issue.
It's a whole new ball game.
Wow,
Josh Gordon has needed a new start ever since his 2-year ban from the NFL.
No.
He's back. It's a fresh start, new place. He's going to be just fine.
No,
by no means.
You're with the same argument like Randy Moss. I heard someone say it's like Randy Moss. I'm like, Randy Moss was proven.
Did I ever say Randy
All
Moss
right,
was Josh
we're
Gordon?
out of time for that one. I'm going to give this one to Chris as well. I like what he said about it being problematic for the Browns. He touched more on about not only the trade, but how it's good for the Browns to just get rid of him. And so with that, we've got 2 points for Chris. We've got none for Blake and 1 for Nick going into the second round. And we'll see you right after the break.
For all of your local news.
For Big Tobacco, this is the money train. They make billions. But smoking kills over half its loyal customers. So they need to find replacements. And since almost all smokers start by age 18, they know they have to hook them young. There are still too many Minnesota kids smoking. But if kids don't start, it's the end of the line for tobacco. Learn how to help at stopthestartmn.com.
You're watching UTVS, local TV for the Granite City.
Heard about the Scarecrow who won an award? He was outstanding in his field.
And we're back, and these guys were arguing all throughout break, so I think they're ready to go for the second segment of our show tonight. So why don't we just get right back into it. Just to recap quick, Chris has 2 points. He's in the lead right now. Nick has 1, and Blake still has 0. Plenty of time to get into it still. Our next topic is Patrick Mahomes of the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, 2 games this year, 10 touchdowns, including 6 last week, and 582 yards. It's only his 3rd career start. So is he for real? He's a huge topic of discussion, and where does he rank among the other quarterbacks?
I think it is for real. Now, I'm going to get this out there. When he was drafted, I thought he was going to be a bust. This shows to me what a year of sitting behind a veteran can do to you, and this is what I think teams with guys that are drafted high and aren't ready should do. They should always sit and wait a year, because he looks like a completely different quarterback to me from what I saw out of him in college. He looks a lot more comfortable. I mean, granted, he lit up a pretty poor Steelers defense, but he did good against the Chargers in Week 1, who have a decent enough defense, and some people think are going to be a playoff team this year. So I don't know. I think he's the real deal. His arm talent is incredible.
Okay, Chris?
He is a fantastic QB, and he's definitely my number 1 in the season right now because he's so young. I mean, you can talk about Ryan Fitzpatrick being good, but he's been around the league for 7 years now and has been bouncing from team to team, not doing so well, and maybe doing well. So, right now this year he is my number 1 quarterback, and he's proving himself as to be the next future star quarterback. That's why I like him.
Well, that's the thing is when Patrick Mahomes went to Kansas City, sat behind Alex Smith for a year. Now you saw him in training camp, and everybody here can say that he looked horrific, throwing more interceptions in training camp than he was completing passes. Not throwing for touchdowns, completing passes. He is silencing haters left and right. He hasn't even played a single game at Arrowhead Stadium this year, and it's awesome that the fact that Patrick Mahomes is bringing more buzz to the Kansas City Chiefs in playing 2 games than Alex Smith has done in his tenure in Kansas City. Big things from Patrick Mahomes to come, not just the first 2 weeks of the season, not just this year. He's going to have a long career in the NFL.
I certainly agree. I mean, I think he's just a gunslinger, and he's fun to watch, and not even the talent, but the viewing perspective. He is fun to watch. It reminds me a lot of Brett Favre. He just throws the ball. He's got a cannon, and he can fit the ball in any window.
Not to mention the Chiefs can laugh at the Chicago Bears, who passed up on him. Mitch Trubisky went number 2, and Patrick Mahomes went 8 picks later at number 10. So Chiefs definitely won that one.
Awesome job, you guys. I'm going to give this one to Nick. I like how he compared him to Alex Smith and kind of the buzz that creates, and the Browns missing out on the opportunity to take him. And so the next topic that we're going to go to, we're going to switch over to baseball, and we're going to talk about the AL wild card. So it's looking right now, it's like the A's and the Yankees. Aaron Judge is returning. So if the teams played today, who do you guys think would win?
I have the Yankees in this because the Yankees lead in home runs and RBIs, and the A's lead in hits and average over each other in the league. And I think in a 1-game series, the 2 things the Yankees lead in, home runs and RBIs, are key to winning the game. The others is long term, so maybe you get into a playoff scenario with the A's. They might be able to beat you in the long game, but the Yankees 1-game scenario, it's got to be them.
It doesn't even compare. I'm hands down with the Yankees winning this wild card game because the Yankees did it last year. They played at home in a wild card, 1-game playoff. They won it last year. They've had the experience. They're going to do it again. They have better pitchers than Oakland does. They have better hitters. Everything points to the Yankees. But if Oakland can take a 2+ run lead into the 8th when they can put in Fernando and Treinen, their star bullpen players, they might win the game, but
Blake?
Yankees.
I think we're all in agreement here. It's got to be the Yankees. Like Chris said, they hit home runs, in their ballpark. I mean, they're going to be the home team in this wild card game, probably, unless they collapse. And that park is suited for what they do best, is hit the long ball. And their pitching is better. Their ace, Severino, I would say, is better than anybody on Oakland's staff. And their bullpen, I mean, they've got arms that just throw heat, and they will shut you down.
Well, not to mention these 2 things. Sean Manaea, the ace, arguably for the Oakland Athletics, is on the 10-day DL, but he's done for the season. And that's just tough. You can't replace those things. And if Oakland was going to try and win that home field advantage for that playoff game, they're finishing their season on a road trip.
What does Oakland have to do if they want to beat it? Nick, you mentioned a little bit, but what else would they have to do?
There's so many variables that go around with baseball. They just have to win. They have to find ways to win.
I think if they get out to an early lead and they can get to their, in their bullpen pitch as well, I think they'd be okay.
It's the same story as the Twins last year. You just can't allow the Yankees to get hot because the Twins started out with 3 runs, allowed the Yankees to get hot, and it was over from there.
Awesome, guys. That was a good discussion. I'm going to give that one to Chris. I like how he broke down the statistics between the two teams. It really helps paint a picture of how that series might go. So off to the next question. We're going to talk about the NL races. Just to break it down a little bit, in the NL Central, we've got the Cubs, the Brewers, and the Pirates. And in the NL West, we've got the Dodgers, the Rockies, and the Diamondbacks. Now, I just want you guys to tell me, who do you think wins each division?
Well, I mean, the divisions are already locked. The Braves win the East, Cubs are in the Central, the Dodgers are in the West. Everybody's watching on that wild card, Brewers, Cardinals. Me personally, it's going to be the same as the American League. It's not really going to be a competition. The Brewers are going to go in and win that game solely because of their bullpen. In the American League wild card game last year, it was proved to baseball fans that it doesn't matter who you have pitching because it's one game. You can put any pitcher you want in there, and the Brewers could win that game solely by pitching.
Okay, Blake?
I disagree that Atlanta's got it locked down. The Phillies play them 7 more times. I mean, granted, it's a long shot. They're, 5 games out or something like that. But, they have a chance if they win every game against them. Granted, it is a long shot. But I still do think it's going to be Atlanta. I think the Cubs will win the Central. I like Milwaukee. I think they're a good team. They've been really good in the second half. But, the Cubs have the White Sox and Pittsburgh coming up. For 7 games.
Chris?
Hey, you talk about it. Pittsburgh is still in that division, and the Brewers, they've been hot recently. I think that's why I'm going to have to pick them to win the Central. I really do. They've been hot this year, and here's the other thing. What do the Cubs have to lose? They get into the wild card. They can still play in. They can still be the Cubs and be good. The Brewers want this because this will solidify them as a championship contender team. I don't think people are looking at them, even though they've been second, third the last couple seasons in this division. If they get this win, and which they still can, they're fighting hard. Then they'll be in first.
But even at the same time, we all are in agreement here that the Brewers are most likely going to move on
Yes.
in the playoffs over the Cardinals no matter what.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a competition. The Cubs and the Dodgers are going to go to the NLCS because
That's hard to say, though, because you had a team like the Yankees last year who came in a wild card spot and made it to the AL champion, or you made it to the series.
They were in a wild card spot because
But
Boston
look at the
was
two
that
teams.
good.
You have to open your eyes and look at the two teams. The Braves and
You're making these baseless observations about October baseball. October baseball is crazy.
All right,
Anything can
guys,
happen.
we got to cut this one short. I'm going to give this one to Blake. I liked how he talked about the potential, even though the unlikelihood of it, but mentioned the possibility of it. I like that a lot. So now we're going to head to our next break, and we'll catch you back right after that. Chris is in the lead with 3. Nick follows behind with 2, and Blake has 1. We'll see you after the break.
1 minute to find out if you may have prediabetes. You can do it here. But I get it, you're busy, and busy people can't have prediabetes. I read that wrong. They can, okay? Just go to the site.
UTVS and Huskies go great together, just like UTVS and its award-winning sports coverage. Tune into the very best coverage of Husky Athletics on Charter Channels 21 and 180. Also on the St. Cloud State Athletics Channel 823. And of course, streaming online at utvs.com. Don't miss a second of the action.
And we're back, and we've got 2 more topics to cover before our show is over, possibly 2 of the best topics of the night, in my opinion. Just to recap who we've got in the lead right now, we've got Chris in the lead with 3 points, Nick follows with 2, and Blake is trailing with 1 point, but there's still a couple more topics to go. We can see where this ends up. So let's jump right into it. We've got the Timberwolves as our first topic here in the last segment. Now, there's been a lot of drama. So the biggest thing is Jimmy Butler has asked for a trade. And now there's been a lot of beef on the team between guys like Jimmy Butler and Karl Anthony Towns. Wiggins' brother apparently tweeted, quote, hallelujah, after there was released news about Jimmy Butler wanting a trade. So with all of this going on, what does this mean for the Wolves, and what decision do they make from here?
Well, for me, I think it's get Jimmy Butler out of town. I mean, he's a cancer in the locker room. There's even executives saying that they don't want to trade for him because he is a problem. And once Jimmy's gone, that makes Wiggins an important piece of this franchise again. Wiggins' first 3 years, he averaged 16.9, 20.7, 23.6 points. Then Butler comes to town and drops down to 17.7. And Wiggins was shooting more mid-range shots because he's forcing shots with Butler here, whereas I think if you can get Wiggins the ball, because Butler took away a lot of what Wiggins does well, and I think it's going to be good for Wiggins. And I think
Okay, we got to go
better
to Chris.
for the Wolves.
Sorry.
I think that they have to get rid of Jimmy also. Jimmy, like you said, he's a problem attitude for the locker room. I mean, outside of even just being a problem attitude, though, if he doesn't want to be there, he's not going to be playing well. That's just the reality of the fact. Where he wants to go to the Knicks. This is where I find it interesting. I think if you can work a trade, you can get Kristaps in the door. You have a center, you have a power forward, and you have a shooting guard, small forward, who can really be good. I think that's a good combo, and it's something that works. Still very young squad for the Wolves.
We don't need Kristaps Porzingis on the Timberwolves.
Too bad.
Would I enjoy him on the team? Sure, but that's not going to be my first target. But yes, I agree with you two. Butler needs to get out of town. The sooner the better. Tibbs is saying he doesn't want to trade Butler. Well, Glenn Taylor is going to have to step it up. Take Tibbs out of his GM operations, like player operations. He's the owner of this team. He needs to man up and he needs to make changes. And you said it. Butler is a cancer in the locker room, and if things don't get better, Minnesota fans can start the timer again. 14 years till we make the playoffs again.
On the Tibbs line, I'm going to actually take a step further than you. If he's not willing to trade Butler, fire him.
Yes.
That's exactly what I was saying.
Yes.
That's what I was saying.
He's got to be gone.
If he's not willing to make that move, it's just wrong for wrong for the team.
It's bad for Towns. It's bad for the long view of this franchise. And Tom Thibodeau trading for Jimmy Butler and his win now and need to win now killed the long-term view of this franchise that Flip Saunders set forward when he traded away Dunn and Levine and the young pieces.
All right, that was a good one, you guys. I'm going to give this one to Chris. I liked his argument about how if Jimmy doesn't want to be there, he's not going to play, and that's really what it comes down to. So the last topic of tonight is going to be the Erik Karlsson trade. We're switching over to hockey here. Now, there's a lot of stuff going on with this trade. We kind of knew for a while he was going to be leaving. Ottawa gets 6 to 8 assets in return for Karlsson. The big thing is Karlsson had not as great of a year last year as he's had before. He was minus 25. He only had 6 goals. What does he add to the Sharks? Because the Sharks do already have Brent Burns, which is a very Erik Karlsson-like player. So what do the Sharks get? Do they get better? And how does Ottawa end up this year losing one of their star players?
I don't really know why the Sharks did what they did to do this. Like, yes, you get a great player in Erik Karlsson, but like you mentioned, they get rid of 6 to 8 of their assets, and 2 of them, Tierney and DeMello, they played for a combined 145 games, and they were leaders on that team, and Erik Karlsson can only play 82. They also got rid of their top AHL prospect in Rudolph Balcers. It just doesn't make sense to me as why the Sharks want to do this. I understand that they still want to compete in the West, but I think they could have done more with the stuff that they had instead of shipping 6 to 8, guys, money, trade, like draft picks, whatever, to Ottawa.
Okay, we'll have to move on to Blake here.
I think it's a good trade. I mean, you add him to Brent Burns on the blue line. Those two are combined to be the highest top 2 scoring defensemen in the NHL over the last 11 years. They combined for 296 goals, 741 assists, and 1,037 points over 1,403 games. I mean, that's ridiculous. That's a 0.7 points per game pace for defensemen. I mean, they might not even pair them together. You could pair one with Eduardo Vlasic and the other one with Braun, or you could put them together. I mean, that power play, they're both opposite hands. It is lethal what they can do.
Chris?
Yeah, this was a win now move, and I think it shows because clearly they had the chance a couple of years back, 3 years ago against the Penguins when they were in that final. They were a really good team. They got hot, but they needed something to get past them. And you look at the West. The West hasn't won a Stanley Cup for 3 years now. It's been Pittsburgh, and Washington. And last year, Vegas ran the table. A brand new team with a lot of young guys, a couple veteran talents. This is the move. They're making that move to win now.
I think that literally just went against what you just said.
Well, I think the move to win now is smart because you've got guys Pavelski, Thornton, and Timo Meier that are all coming off of contracts after this year. And those guys aren't getting any younger. Well, Meier's relatively young, but Pavelski and Thornton are both into their 30s. And I think, especially if they can re-sign Karlsson, I think they stole it.
Okay, where do the Sharks end up then this year? Do they make the playoffs again? Do they make somewhat of a good run? Where do they go from here?
Definitely a playoff.
I think they're the best in the West.
Conference finals.
What makes them the best in the West, Chris?
Wow.
You can't tell me that they're the best in the West.
Just gonna go there.
That's not bold.
Bold.
That's a hot take right there.
Hot take.
You're going to have to defend yourself on that one. What do you think?
I don't think so. I think if I make that call now, we'll see how it plays out.
No, they're going to make it past the first round of the playoffs, and they're going to get pounced just like they did last year.
All right. I'm giving Blake the point on this one. I like how he talked about the combined efforts of Brent Burns and Erik Karlsson. I think that's a good point to make. Unfortunately, it's not going to be enough to put him over the edge, but we'll see who the official winner is when we get back from break, and we'll see you in a little bit.
The tobacco industry is constantly changing in order to attract new customers. They use tactics like social media, free music downloads, and concert promotions. Because they know if they don't addict smokers by 18, they probably never will. But if kids don't start, smoking stops. Learn how to help at stopthestartmn.com.
You're watching UTVS, local TV for the Granite City. Visit utvsnews.com for all of your local news.
Most party fouls are pretty dumb. But if you decide to drink and drive underage, you could lose your license and your freedom. Underage drinking and driving, the ultimate party foul.
And we're back, and there's only 2 of us left, and since I'm the host, that means Chris is the winner of tonight's match. He took 4 of the points. Nick and Blake tied for second place with 2 apiece. Now, Chris, you had a good day. You had a lot of good arguments, and now the floor is yours to talk about whatever you want.
All right, well, I'm going to have to talk about the Denver Broncos. They're my team. You know they are. That's what I'm going to have to go with. I don't know. Denver looking pretty good this year, starting out 2-0, better than the Vikings, who are 1-0-1. Just gonna give a little jab to Vikings fans out there. No, I mean, I think they look good. They got 2 young running backs. Phillip Lindsay has gone really well to start when he's like an undrafted rookie. What's that all about? So I think that's pretty good. Demaryius Thomas needs to stop dropping the ball. They got Case Keenum.
I was just gonna ask, what do you think about Case Keenum?
I like him so far. Threw a couple picks in his first game, but he's, obviously we saw it last year in Minnesota. He's a good quarterback. He just needs to solidify his game, and I think he can do that with the receivers they have in Denver. So.
And how far can Keenum take the Broncos?
Oh, hopefully better than last year, 5-11. I hope they get a little bit better. It'll be fun to get back into the playoff scene.
What would you predict the Broncos record to be this season?
I'm being a little pessimistic here, but probably about 8-8. I don't know. I think they'll get a little bit better. I don't know if I trust Vance Joseph all that much as a coach.
Okay, and if the Broncos do make it to the playoffs, who would you like to see first in the first round? Who do you think they have the best chance against? I know it's early in the season, but who do you think that they could compete well against?
I'd like to see the Bills. I know they're not in the playoff, but they're such a bad team that I'd love for them to play the Bills in the first round.
And who's the toughest team in your division?
The Chiefs, obviously.
Patrick
We talked
Mahomes?
about Patrick Mahomes. The Chiefs are winning the AFC West. That's the way it is.
All right, you got about 15 seconds left. Anything else you want to say?
No.
All right, simply put, that's all he's got. Thank you for joining us tonight on Crunch Time, and we'll see you back here next week at the same time. Got a quarter?
With some snow turning over to rain as we go through the day tomorrow.
Currently it's 44 degrees. The rain did start to come down again. We had a short break there.